Hello everybody, my name is Juan Pena. I'm a teaching artist with Miami Music Project, and as you can see, I play the bass. Double bass or string bass if you like. Let me start by wishing that all of you and your families are staying healthy and safe during these trying times. And I hope that you have discovered that music can be a great companion while in quarantine. In the first part of this video, I would like to explore the basic elements of both the right hand and the left hand techniques. And on the second part, I will go over The Elephant from the Carnival of the Animals by the French composer Camille Sansone. But before we get into any of that, let me address something even more basic: how to hold the bass. If we stand when we play, which is what I recommend, especially at the early stages, we want to make sure that we are not holding the bass completely on its side. Look at what happens if I hold the bass like this and try to play on the E string. As you can see, my leg gets in the way and I can only use a small section of my bow, which is not a good thing. Now, if I try to hold my bass from behind, among other things, it will be quite impossible for me to reach a good contact point with the bow. This means that we have to find something in between. Locate your left hip bone and place the back edge of your instrument just on the inside of it, making sure that you create enough space between the top edge of the bass and your belly. This way, you will be able to play comfortably on all the strings. Another great reason for holding the bass in this way has to do with the left hand. I can keep a nice and natural position this way. But I will talk about that in more detail in a moment. For now, let's turn our attention back to the right hand. By the way, if you do not have a bass at home because you were not able to get one from your school before the lockdown, you could still go through the motions while analyzing and processing the concepts and ideas that I will be sharing with you here. I will be focusing on the French bow grip, but if you are a German bow player, you will find that most of these concepts will apply to you as well. It is of extreme importance to understand that everything that we do when playing the bass should be done in the most natural way possible. In the case of holding your bow, this means that if you keep your natural hand position from when you're not doing anything at all, you will end up with a great bow grip. You can always use a tennis ball or an orange or an apple to check that your bow hold is correct. This is how you would normally hold a tennis ball. That is the exact shape your hand should have when you hold the bow. Make sure that your thumb is curved on the inside like this. This approach applies to the German bow as well. When you wrap your hand around the frog, you want to keep that same natural round shape. Let's talk now about the mechanics involved in the use of the right arm. We want our bow to be parallel to the bridge at all times. That is key to achieving a good round bass sound. Our wrist, elbows and shoulders have each a specific way to move in this process. Your wrist should be in gradual and constant motion all the way from the frog to the tip. Check my wrist while I play a couple of notes. Next in this process, we have our shoulder, which is in motion from the start at the frog until we get past just the middle of the bow. The exact point for that will have to do with your arm's length and also the length of your bow. At that point, we stop the motion in our shoulder and transfer it to the elbow, which will continue it until we reach a straight arm as we get to the tip of the bow. Shoulder starts motion, shoulder stops. Elbow continues the motion until we get to the end of the bow. On the way back from the tip to the frog, we want to mirror those steps. Elbow starts the motion, elbow stops, shoulder continues the motion until we get back to the frog. Observe. Now, make sure that when you start at the frog, your wrist is on a higher plane than your hand, and that your elbow is just hanging in a relaxed manner from your shoulder. That way, the sound will be produced by the weight of your arm and not by tense pressure. This will also allow you to keep full contact of your bow hair on the string. If your wrist is sinking in, you will end up playing with just a little bit of your bow hair, which in turn will produce a weak sound. Now, if you go too much on the other direction, you will end up doing the same with the hair on the other side. Okay, let's play a D major 1 octave scale. Remember the F sharp and C sharp in the key signature. We'll be staying in the first position until we reach the B, and then shifting to third position for the C sharp and D. As I play the scale, observe how all of this comes together, and remember, apply the basic right hand technique principles to everything that you play. Let's turn our attention now to the left hand. It is also very important for the left hand that we hold the bass in a proper manner. It allows us to keep a nice, relaxed, and natural position. We want our hand to form a straight line with our forearm to avoid any straining. But before we go any further, let's talk about the height of the bass. How far should we take our end pin out? This is a very important question. We don't want our instruments to be too tall because our left hand will be so high up that it would be really uncomfortable to play in the lower positions for too long. Blood circulation to our fingers would become rather hard, and we wouldn't have a good natural angle in our wrist. On the other hand, if the bass is too low, it would force us to hunch forward in order to reach a good contact point with our bow, as well as to play in the higher positions. That definitely would not be good for our backs. So, I want to set my bass to a height where my left hand is leveled more or less with my left cheek when playing in first position. That would not only allow me to be comfortable with my left hand, but it would also let me set my bow in a good spot between the fingerboard and the bridge, while at the same time maintaining my upper body in good posture. Notice the angle in which I hold my instrument. I want the neck of the bass to come towards me so that I can pretty much hug it. One issue when trying to play with a bass that is too vertical and the neck too far is that you end up in a position where you have to bend your wrist in a way that is not very natural and could be detrimental to the health of your muscles and tendons. And at the same time, it will restrict the ease of movement. Compare this to this. Now, let's bring back our tennis ball. Remember how it helped us check our right hand position when holding the ball? Well, we can do the same with our left hand too. See, this is the exact shape I want to have when I place my hand on the fingerboard. I want to align my thumb behind the fingerboard with my second finger and keep my first finger clear from the fingerboard. Always make sure that your left hand is in the shape of a letter C. Now, let's talk about shifting. When we press down on the strings, we definitely want a firm grip, but we don't want to put more pressure than we need to. Otherwise, we end up squeezing and tensing so much that it will make our hands tired and shifting rather difficult. The thumb should be supporting our position, but free enough to move up and down the neck as we shift back and forth. Your thumb must also be flexible enough for your hand to slightly rotate, depending on what string you're playing on. On the G string, on the E string. Now, as I mentioned before, we want to make sure that we keep a nice round shape with our hand and fingers, but we also need to review the spacing between our fingers. Of course, we only use 1, 2, and 4 in the regular positions, and we don't normally start using 3 until we reach the octave or the thumb position. In the regular positions, it's easy for our second finger notes to be on the flat side if we're not careful, even if our 1, 2, 4 is perfectly in tune. We need to remind ourselves to space out our second finger more so that the distance between 1 and 2 is the same distance as the distance between 2 and 4. Let's also make sure that we keep those fingers really close to the strings at all times. If we're playing with the first finger, let's make sure that the other fingers are kept very close to the string. And if we're playing with the fourth finger, the others remain on the string. Otherwise, it's really hard to play fast passages in a clean manner. By the way, we should not use vibrato when playing scales and arpeggios. One of the reasons why we practice scales is to develop our sense of tonality and intonation. And when we vibrate, we hide intonation imperfections, since vibrato bends the pitch of the notes up and down. Okay, let's play an F major scale in 2 octaves. Remember the B flat in the key signature. We're going to start in half position, and after the B flat on the G string, we will move to the third position for C and D, and then to fifth position for E and F. Check it out from this angle and at a faster speed. Let's move on to the second part of this session. Let's work on The Elephant by Camille Sansone. As I mentioned earlier, this is part of a larger piece called The Carnival of the Animals, scored for 2 pianos, string quintet, flute, clarinet, glass harmonica, and xylophone. It was written in 1886 and it has 14 movements, all of which, except for the swan, number 13, are humoristic in character. The Elephant is the 5th of these movements. It is marked allegretto pomposo and it is in 3/8 time. It is scored for solo bass accompanied by the second piano. Let me start by saying that we should not play this too fast. Although it is an allegretto, we still want to convey the image of a heavy elephant walking by. There are some editions of this as a solo piece that give a metronome marking that is not in the original, and which I think is a bit too fast. Now, I often hear this piece played with the incorrect accentuation, as if it started with an upbeat to the second note like this. actually emphasize the downbeat on that first note. We should feel each downbeat as one heavy step by the elephant. The composer actually writes accents in some of those downbeats. Listen. In terms of fingerings, I like to do the first two notes on the same string to get more of that feeling of heaviness. But if you prefer, you could just go across the strings like this. This piece has three very clear sections. The first one is the elephant theme, which I just played the beginning of, in that we're going to call the A section. Then comes the B section, which is much more lyrical and connected. Here, Sansone makes a musical joke by quoting two pieces by other composers. The first one is by another French composer, Octave, his Ballet the Seals. Let's give a listen to the original piece. As you can hear, the melody is played in the high register by the violins. It sounds almost like a music box. Now, if you knew this melody and then hear it played in the low register by a bass, you would get the joke. You have to imagine an elephant trying to dance like a ballerina to this tune. By the way, we have to make sure that we play this melody very legato. I often hear students play this all chopped up and disconnected. It must be contrasting to the A section. There's another piece that Sansone briefly quotes in this B section, Mendelssohn's Midsummer's Night Dream, the Scherzo. Let's give a listen to a bit of the original. As you can hear, this is a very fast and agile piece. And the joke here is that agility is not the first thing that comes to mind when we think of the bass or of an elephant, although they can run very fast. Now, in these repeated accented notes that lead us to the third section, we must be careful that we do not accent the bow change in the last one. This one. I often hear a big accent that should not be there on that up bow. This is how we get to the third and final section, which is a return to the music from the A section, this time with a much more conclusive ending. So, we went from A to B and then back to A in the music. From now on, when you hear anybody talk about the ABA form, you will know exactly what they're talking about. I will now play the whole piece for you. Thanks for watching. I hope this has helped you review and reinforce some of the basics of bass playing. And I wish you all the best while staying at home. Bye!